the latest dose of Bipolar Recorder. This podcast may cause dizziness and blurred vision. Enjoy.
Welcome back to Bipolar Recorder, an independent American mental health advocacy podcast. My name is Hunter Keegan. Thanks for joining me for another groundbreaking installment of the show. Bipolar Recorder has been active for almost exactly 4 years now. This show officially debuted on October 7th, 2021. Time flies. As many of you know, in 2025, Bipolar Recorder is no longer simply a podcast, but, among many other things, an online peer support community hosted on the Twitter, now X, Spaces platform. I host the peer support spaces on my @Bipolar Recorder account fairly regularly, usually at least a couple of times a week. And when we have particularly worthwhile conversations, I occasionally pull audio from them and include them on the official podcast. Lately, we've been talking a lot about substance abuse recovery, and I've also been sharing a bit about my ongoing trials and tribulations when it comes to dating. So for today's installment, I've spliced together some peer support spaces conversations from the month of September 2025. You're about to hear some candid discussions I've recently had with members of the Bipolar Recorder Spaces community, and I think you'll find them interesting, especially if you're in recovery yourself. And even if you're not in recovery at this time, you may find these perspectives worthwhile. In these clips, we discuss dating disasters, non-alcoholic beer, and the risks and benefits of marijuana and psychedelic drugs.
As we join this Spaces conversation from late September 2025, a member of the Bipolar Recorder Spaces community asks Hunter why he stopped hosting quote-unquote chicken spaces on his personal HH Keegan Twitter account.
Not at the chicken job anymore. I don't know what to think of your spaces, Hunter.
I know. I've been reflecting on the chicken job lately, and I think in retrospect, that's probably one of the weirdest eras of my adult life. And as I was going through it for the few months that I was at the chicken job, it wasn't really registering to me how fucking crazy it was. And now that I'm back in like a proper, I guess you could say white collar, like legitimate job, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I was at the fucking chicken job. Like that shit was crazy. But you got to do what you got to do. I think the chicken job was a good, like, personal growth experience or something. But, like, Jesus Christ. I recorded an episode of the podcast about it that was released in, like, late May or something. And I re-listened to that recording somewhat regularly. And, it's like, I don't know. It's just like trippy to listen to as I like listen to myself explain what led up to it and the actual experience of the chicken job and like what it, evolved into, like in terms of getting out of the chicken job. It's just like, wow, that was just crazy. And not long ago either. Like I was there from like basically like November until late February 2025, like November 2024 up through February 2025. And it was just like a weird time.
I just miss the titles of your spaces because you always read your space titles a lot. I do too when I host, and you had to, say "bok bok" all the time. I just thought that was really funny. I miss those
Yeah.
days, Hunter. It was almost like we
Yeah.
were coworkers together.
um, I mean, it's not really a secret. Well, I mean, it's not a secret because I mean, I talked about it on the podcast, but like, there was a lot of alcohol influencing those chicken spaces. Like, I don't do mental health spaces when I'm having issues with drinking, but that was part of why the chicken job spaces were on my other account and were not recorded and were like much crazier. So I mean, there are there are reasons why there have been no more chicken job spaces over like the last 6 months, you know. Um, on that note, though, I've having gone through those lapses with alcohol not too long ago and stuff. One of the positive things I've been reflecting on is how much more fucking stable I am without, putting that shit in my body, in my brain. Um, and Yeah, no, like the difference, like I had been sober for so many years that I think that like a large part of me really forgot just like how much that shit totally fucks with every aspect of like your system. And one of the things that, it made me realize is we were talking about like poor sleep quality and stuff earlier. Like the sleep disruptions that alcohol causes are insane, at least for me. Like it's like you feel like it helps you fall asleep, but like in terms of REM sleep and deep sleep and stuff, it just absolutely interferes with that. And so even if you pass out for like, 6 hours or something, you wake up feeling completely drained from the get go. And then it's like it's just diminishing returns over and over again. And it catches up with you.
Is anyone a fan of non-alcoholic uh, brews? That's been my
Yes.
saving grace these days. Is just the increasing quality. Because I
Yeah.
mean, it used to just be old duels, and that
Mhm.
wasn't anything. But like my favorite beer has always been Guinness, and the non-alcoholic Guinness is a pretty close approximation.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so like during my first long-term sober stint, which was like about 7 years. After about like 4 years of being into that, I started drinking non-alcoholic beer pretty regularly, and the options these days are actually pretty badass. Like, I mean, Heineken Zero used to be like my go-to. It tastes basically exactly like actual Heineken. I was really surprised. Um, but I will say, just like for right now, since I've had like on and off lapses and relapses over like the last year and a half, and so just like for right now, I'm not fucking with that. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I got dragged into this horrendous date with a woman like about 2.5 weeks ago,
yeah,
and
I
she
was
like
on. Oh, sorry.
oh yeah, were you there?
I was there, and that was when I was listening to that story. I was like, oh man, I as soon as she came out with the can of whatever that drink was, smoking the
Yeah.
cigarette, and I was like, Hunter, dude, I like, oh,
Should have just dipped.
well, and she's like, like a single mom in her early 40s. It's like,
Hmm.
I know that woman. Like,
Yep.
I'm friends with that woman often, so like, it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
There were
yeah.
many red flags.
The following audio is pulled from a previous bipolar recorder peer support space where Hunter explained a disastrous first date that he went on in early September 2025.
I am about to dive into a really trashy story from my life about what happened last night. So I have been back on the dating apps. Essentially, what happened is I had matched with a woman who, according to her profile, was like 42 years old, a bit older than myself, registered nurse, which I was like, oh, that's cool, like healthcare. She's probably like, you know, has to like know what she's doing, like probably has her shit together. And so we had been messaging back and forth for a few days, and I like, had most of the weekend off. So I was like, hey, like, let's get together and like grab a coffee or like, whatever. And so we ended up going out to dinner last night, and she asked me to pick her up from her place. And so I show up to her place, I get out of my car, and as I'm walking up to her front door, she's like coming out the door, and I'm like, oh, hey. And I said her name. I was like, hey, name of woman, like, what's up? I'm Hunter. Like, it's nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And I know she's holding do you guys know what club tails are? Do they have those?
No. What are they?
Okay, they're really cheap mixed cocktails. Basically, it's like a canned cocktail that's like 10% ABV, and they come in these like big, like I think pint size, like 16-ounce cans. And so she's just like chilling on one of those, and
Wait,
I'm
what's
like,
ABV? What is that?
alcohol
Pot
by
drink?
volume. No,
Oh.
no, they're like 10%. Like a beer is like 4% to 5% usually.
I mean,
So
like a
these are like
vodka
10.
spritzer in a
Yeah,
in a
yeah, she's drinking.
glass?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
She's drinking like a screwdriver, and I'm like, oh, okay. It's like that's probably why she didn't want to drive. So responsible, I guess. Um, so I walk up and we're like talking for a few minutes. She lights a cigarette, and I'm like, oh, you smoke? Like, and I didn't say it like in a judgy way. I was just like, oh, I thought that you're a nurse, and so like I wouldn't have expected you to like. And she's like, yeah, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay. Anyway, we go out to dinner in lovely, scenic downtown Roanoke, world famous Roanoke, VA. Dinner goes pretty okay, and I genuinely just wanted to go out and like like meet her in person and just like see if she was cool or not. And then like my plan was that I was gonna go home. She, on the way out of the restaurant, is like, "Oh my God, like we should totally go do something fun. Like, let's do something fun." And so in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm not drinking. Like I'm really like getting back on the rails with that. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, first off, like I do not want to fucking go to like some weird ass bar, but that's clearly what she wants to do, right? She's like, I know this like really fun karaoke place, and
Definitely, she wanted to go
yeah,
drinking.
Like you just
exactly.
went to dinner. Like you didn't even ask her. Like the date's over. You're like,
Yes,
let's do something fun. We just did. We had dinner.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, there was live music there. She had like oh, by the way, she had like a glass or two of wine with her dinner on top of the screwdriver. So it was already, I was kind of like, all right. But so anyway, she like coerces me into driving her and myself in the bipolar mobile. She convinces me to drive to like this actually kind of like low-key sketchy part of town. Um, and there's a dive bar there. Okay, so fast forward a little bit. So we're in the dive bar. I'm not going to say the name of the bar because then people will like know where they can find me and shit. But it was this really trashy bar. Like clientele is like all like 60 plus year old like redneck Southern men, and like their wives and girlfriends and shit, and like everyone's drinking like really cheap like like PBRs and stuff. so she's like singing karaoke. There's a lot of people singing karaoke. It's a really weird fucking scene. I really didn't want to be there. And now it's getting to be like 11:30. She is like an additional like 3 or 4 shots of tequila plus like a Captain and Coke deep, getting progressively more and more hammered. I have a non-alcoholic Bush Light, which is like
Bush
a
Light,
thing.
not alcohol. That's
Yeah,
the worst
they
one,
ma-
probably.
that's all they had that was non-alcoholic there. And okay, anyway, so fast forward, it's like now after midnight, and this fucking party is like still raging. And I go up to her, and I'm literally like, hey, listen, I know you're having a good time, and like I hate to be a downer, but like I've got to get out of here. I was like, we really have to go. And she's like, why? And she's like slurring her words. Eventually, we are driving home. It is after 12:30 at night. She starts having like an emotional breakdown in my car about her ex-husband, and some stuff with her kids and like all this other shit. It gets like super heavy and sad. She's like really, really upset. It's like a 25-minute drive from the bar we were at to get back to her, hillside cottage. And I dropped her off, and I'm like, I'm like, do I like walk her to the door? Like, it's literally like a 15-foot walk, but I'm like, she's really hammered. And so I asked her, I'm like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, do you want me just to like drop you out front? Like, what's up? And then she proceeds to sit in my car for like another 10 minutes, like, just like really like being upset. And I'm like, okay, if you need to talk, like you got my number. And she's like, all right. And I'm like, okay. And so I watch and like make sure she's able to get into her house. I peel back onto the mean streets of the Blue Ridge Mountains, go back to my house, question my life decisions for like 3 hours, and then I took my sleeping medication and went to bed. And that's how my Saturday night went.
We now return to the original conversation about addiction recovery and harm reduction.
But yeah, no. So like when we were at that shitty karaoke bar, like I did have a couple of those non-alcoholic Bush Lights, and like honestly, dude, like, and I was talking to like one of my recovery buddies about all of this, privately, like a week ago. He was like, dog, like just. He was like, bro, just like don't put yourself in a situation like that again. And I was like, you're so right. Like, like I can't, even if it's non-alcoholic, it's too recent for me to like really be risking doing that. And especially at like an actual bar, it's just like, dude, like what the fuck? Just too risky.
And getting out of drinking is a big thing. I mean, it's the most consistently healthy thing I do for myself because like particularly I'm, a bit older, so at this point in life, it just takes so much out of me on top of the, any sort of other disorder or illness stuff going on that it's not worth it for
Yeah.
me personally, but like younger, I mean, a good time is a good time. But if it's going to be something where it compounds and like you didn't have fun, like, so what's the point? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like one of the like actually in my experience, like one of the few narcotics that like has basically zero benefit. Like you know what I mean? Like alcohol, like completely, it like fucks over your sleep. It fucks over your productivity. I don't get like any creative projects done when I'm drinking. I don't do anything. I end up like sitting on my couch by myself, like listening to podcasts and just like accomplishing nothing. And in addition, of course, to like the physical side effects and like, just how sick it makes you and everything. It's like, it's a really, really bad drug. And unfortunately, I was like, at first, I was like, oh, I've got it under control. Like, this won't escalate. And then it's like, what has happened now over the last like year and a half is like, it went from like dabbling maybe a couple of times a month to like a couple of times a week to like every fucking day. And then it's like I would take like extended hiatuses from drinking, and then my brain would like trick itself into being like, oh, see, like you've been sober for a couple of months. Like you can get back into it and like learn from your mistakes and you'll be fine. And then it's like now I'm at a point where that's happened like a couple of times. And I'm just like, all right, dude, like the evidence shows actually you cannot handle this. And for that reason, it's really most prudent if you just stay the fuck away. And it's like, I'm 32 years old now. I'll be 33 this coming April. And I'm just like, dude, you're a fucking adult. Like, stop being an idiot. Stop fucking around. So that's where I'm at.
And it honestly, dude, it is something. It is smart to get off that train sooner rather than later, because it's not something that gets better with age.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
and also it doesn't seem like you're a person who's much into the bar culture anyway. So, like, what if you're not one who likes going down to the corner bar and spend the night, or go out karaokeing, you know with a bunch of drunk people, then like what's the point if you're compromising your own health? If it's not really that much fun. And also
Yeah.
there's so much any other options these days, like particularly the cannabis options, which the people always say it's the same as having a glass of wine. I actually think it's better because as you say, in terms of productivity,
Hmm.
I've actually can be productive on cannabis.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to like last year I was smoking a shitload of cannabis and I stopped using it regularly almost exactly 1 year ago. September 2024 is when I went from smoking like a quarter pound of weed each month to like,
Wow.
yeah, I know it was like getting crazy. And I uh I basically completely stopped using it. I've used marijuana maybe like 6 or 7 times in the last year. Um, and just, smoking casually like when I'm hanging out with people or whatever. But man, I think marijuana these days it can be kind of insidious. I think that especially with the really high potency strains, it's not like a casual I mean it can be a casual thing, but I also think a lot of people trick themselves into thinking they're not abusing a substance because it's like relatively so much less harmful than like alcohol or like harder stuff. But um yeah, I don't know. I'm at a point where like I exercise a lot of caution with how I engage with cannabis at this point. That's just me.
Yeah, well, people kind of confuse less harmful with as being safe. You know, um, I it's also people starting younger and the higher potency stuff. That's the thing. If you're starting now at 15, smoking higher potency, now you're like 25 or something. That's
Uh-huh.
much different than back in the day when you're smoking weed that had 4 or 5% THC versus the resins that are like 70, 80%.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah. I think I started using weed when I was like maybe 14 or 15. And I would like smoke weed with my friends on weekends. Like it wasn't too crazy. Um, but I would like if I had a kid, like I don't have any kids, but if I had a kid who was like 14 years old and I found out they were like smoking weed every day or whatever, I would be concerned. Like, especially, I mean, it can trigger psychosis for some people and stuff, and panic attacks and shit. It's just, I don't know. You can't really trifle with, even if you're not like the resins, but even if you're smoking, a 25% THC content strain, like through a joint or a bong or whatever, like that can get you sometimes.
Yeah, and as being younger, warning someone of potential harms isn't going to necessarily help. But my argument would be if you start too soon, it's not going to have the same benefits if you started later. Like I've discovered that I'm pushing 50, that since I didn't start smoking when I was younger and I went years without consuming THC, that now that I do, I can gain benefits from it that I I don't think I would have if I'd been consistently consuming over these decades. And
Yeah.
like particularly with the disorder, I think it's been something that I'm a person that I can get the benefits from THC because I didn't start too soon and I didn't use for so long. So like,
Yeah. I
and
think
I
that
think
makes sense.
and I think that's the thing. It's like, hey, if you want to use THC when you're 45, don't start when you're 17 because it's one, you're never going to be able to get as high as possible anyway. So it's
Right.
not, you're like, so you're actually going to diminish the effect of weed over the years anyway. So here, this is just a logical reason why to not start. Besides the fact that like just like wait until you figure out who you are before you start really messing around with altering your consciousness. Like
Yeah.
you could just wait a few years. Like it's you know I don't know.
Hmm.
It's like those like old head things that I feel like should be taught, that like not like, because we know that just saying don't do it isn't gonna work, but like let's intelligently do it. Also, like one thing I've discovered is like edibles are almost impossible to use if you have any sort of mental illness thing going on, because you just can't control the dosage
Yeah,
and
edibles
the
are a
effects.
lot harder to dial in and can get super crazy for very long periods of time, because they last, like the effect lasts so much longer than smoking. Um, but yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. I think that like, when I was like a teenager, smoking weed, it used to make me really paranoid. But I liked the body high, like the physical sensation of it, so I would like smoke it anyway. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think that like, yeah, it's an adult thing, I guess. And of course, this is like easy for me to say because like I've been through the life experiences that I've been through, and so my perspective on all this shit has changed a lot. Like if I was like 16 and someone was like, "You're not supposed to smoke weed," I'd be like, "Fuck you, I'm doing it anyway, man." But and that is basically what happened. But yeah, I don't know. Just with the benefit of hindsight, I'm like, it's you know, um, things could have been done differently. And I'll also say, let alone when it comes to like actual psychedelics, I think that it's kind of like a whole other topic, but just the way people talk about like shrooms and acid and stuff, because I've used those sorts of things extensively since I was like 19 years old, I get really tired of people being like calling psychedelics quote unquote medicine. Like when people are like, oh, let the psychedelic medicine help you. It just like, it really bothers me. because I've
Oh,
become kind of a little jaded to that whole thing as well.
so Hunter, I have a perspective on that, on psychedelics, is because I use psychedelics for, about a 3 year period, you know, actually about a 4 year period between like 18 and 22, my time in college. And I used it in, um, mushrooms in a very specific fashion in college, after the death of my father. And it was something that I used, medicinally, and it was something that had tremendous therapeutic benefit. And after I had that experience, I've never consumed anything again. And I think because I used it as medicine in a short period of time, because I think if you continue using something, it's a drug. It's not a medicine. Like, if you have to keep going back, what did you actually get from it? I had that experience, and it still resonates with me today. And I'm actually can reach those spots simply by consuming cannabis. And I think because I was able to just use it in a confined period and following the protocols of, setting and dosage under, a monitored environment, I reaped the benefits because it was used in a therapeutic fashion and I wasn't just getting high. And because of that, I think it's done tremendous in the fact that I went years without being unmedicated and undiagnosed, bipolar. Like I
Yeah,
could swear I would, you cannot prove something like that because you can't prove, scientifically, but I would argue because of those experiences, I actually was able to use it in a medicinal fashion. But I have no desire to do it now. And if I did, I think it would cause way more harm than help for me at this point. So I think we should be much more careful how we use these things. So I'm in total agreement. The very loose language of just calling it medicine is it's problematic. And it's kind of disrespectful
right.
to it anyway.
Yes, and that's the last part of what you said is kind of like what I'm referring to. Like, I'm not disputing that psychedelics have therapeutic properties and stuff. Like, I'm down with that. I agree with that, but like, it's just the terminology of like, psychiatrists or therapists or quote unquote life coaches being like, "Oh, yes, take this medicine. The medicine will heal you." It's like something about that just like doesn't sit right with me. I think it's like the medicalization of the substance is like it's just like that's stupid to me. And I think that like another thing that pisses me off is like because of messaging like that, like people who haven't ever used that type of drug, they might perceive it as like a panacea for like trauma or depression or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm really of the mentality where it's like, take some shrooms and like hang out with your friends in the woods and like listen to music and like chill around a campfire. I'm not like, I don't think those types of experiences are best suited for like sitting in a clinical environment with like a therapist talking to you as you like trip the fuck out. Like that's just like very bizarre to me
Right.
personally.
Well, because, set and setting are incredible. Those are, the Timothy Leary essentials to a successful psychedelic trip. So yeah, no, you're having a tribal bonding experience. Like, yeah, you're definitely getting something from it, in that setting, more than if you were just in a sterile doctor's environment, because it's not the right mental environment for the experience, opposed to the comfort of your friends, where you're more likely to open up. My thing about psychedelics has been, how can you really know what is real until you understand what isn't? Like, for me, it's always been something that is, I think, helped process any sort of intrusive thoughts, flights of fancy, grandiosity, delusions, what have you, because if you've tripped, you understand what the concept of having these foreign, alien, wild ideas coming about because you're fucking tripping balls. So being able to recognize that stuff when you have a disorder, I think there's an overlap there. But I mean, might just be my personal experience and how it manifests in me. But that's, I think, the specific way I see how it's benefited me, in addition for the simple fact that, yeah, spending time with your buddies in that situation, you are going to get benefits. And the idea that if it isn't just in a doctor's office that you're not going to get health benefits is ridiculous. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen photos of like what those like clinical psychedelic setups look like, and you have like you're sitting in a chair with like one of those like eye mask things on, and you have like a blanket, and you're like hooked up to a heart rate monitor while like someone's like sitting there talking to you or whatever, and it's like very like MK Ultra or something. I'm just like, fuck that. Like it's crazy. But I don't know, whatever. All right. On that note, this has been an interesting conversation. Gonna wrap it up. It was good talking to you. Hope to see you again soon.
Same. Have a great one, guys. Peace.
All right. Peace. Thank you for listening to this, the 64th installment of the official Bipolar Recorder podcast. We have a lot of cool things coming up in the month of October, which officially marks the 4-year anniversary of Bipolar Recorder. One of the cool things is that there is now new merch available on bipolarrecorder.com. I have some awesome custom poetry cards that are now available for order. Longtime followers of my work know that I've always offered short poetry cards for purchase as a way to support my ongoing mental health outreach efforts. Traditionally, those poems were written with a manual typewriter on simple index cards like you'd find at an office supply store. But now I have custom, American-made, premium quality, deluxe cards. Check them out at bipolarrecorder.com. These one-of-a-kind cards are a cool, unique way to support the show, and this new stationery that they're on is so bougie and nice that you could frame them if you wanted to, or maybe even put them in an actual gallery. I also have some special interviews that I'm lining up over the next few weeks, so be sure to follow this show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever other streaming service you use so you can stay abreast of the latest updates. Remember that my latest book, Happy Valleys, A Bipolar Journey, is available on Amazon. It came out earlier this year and has been getting great reviews, which is encouraging to me because I spent literally years working on it, so I'm glad that my efforts weren't in vain. And if you've already read Happy Valleys, A Bipolar Journey, and you enjoyed it but haven't left a review yet, please consider taking a couple of seconds to leave a quick review on Amazon so I can keep getting visibility on my written work. By the way, many people are still clamoring for an audiobook edition of Happy Valleys, and that's something that I'm absolutely interested in doing, but I have to get Bipolar Recorder's financial situation stabilized before I can embark on that endeavor. This is a grassroots, unsponsored show, so listeners like you help make these sorts of things possible. You can make a donation and or buy some dope merch at bipolarrecorder.com/shop. Thank you to everyone who follows and supports this project. It's been a wild last 4 years, and it means so much to me that thousands of people around the world have caught on to this whole thing. The Twitter and X Spaces platform is where we host the Bipolar Recorder online peer support community. So if you'd like to join in on the types of conversations you heard during today's podcast installment, be sure to follow on Twitter/X at Bipolar Recorder. You can also follow my personal account on Twitter or X at HHKeegan. And there's our account on Instagram at Bipolar Recorder. Finally, if you're not on social media but want to reach out to me for whatever reason, you can email me directly at hunterhkeegan@gmail.com. My name is Hunter Keegan. Thanks again for listening. Keep coming back for more, and have a totally awesome day, evening, or night, wherever you are. Bipolar Recorder is a listener-supported show. To help keep the show running, consider checking out our Patreon page or visiting bipolarrecorder.com.
Unless otherwise stated, the hosts and guests on Bipolar Recorder are not licensed mental health professionals. Bipolar Recorder is not a substitute for therapy or professional medical intervention. If you are having a mental health crisis, please contact your local emergency services.